Hello and welcome to D3, a show where we discuss, debate and decode. With less than a year to go for the Karnataka Assembly elections, political activities in the state have started to heat up. So how are the political parties shaping up, and more importantly, how is the politics of the state shaping up? To help us answer all these questions, we have with us Mr. Akram Mohammad, who is a journalist covering Karnataka politics for Deccan Herald. So thank you so much for taking out time from a busy schedule. Let's get straight into it. My first question to you is about the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. In July 2021, we see B.S. Yediyurappa, who's perhaps the tallest leader in Karnataka as far as the BJP is concerned, stepping down, making way for Basavaraj Bommai. In these 1.5 to 2 years, what is your assessment of the new government, and given the fact that we have seen a host of events happening in these 2 years? So what is your analysis of it?
After Yediyurappa, the problem with removing Yediyurappa was the leader for BJP. Because he's a Lingayat, he could gather these Lingayat votes come election season, and he was the tallest leader of the community per se. Bommai lacks on that front because he is not a community leader, and moreover the Lingayat community he represents is a micro sect of the Lingayat community in itself. So the problem with Bommai is Bommai is not accepted within BJP circles as a proper BJP man. As you know, he is formerly from the Janata Dal family. He was with the JDS, then he joined the BJP, and he has been a minister in the past. But still, for those people who were originally from the BJP, it is difficult for them to accept that Bommai is their leader. So all these developments you see over the past few months, maybe it be the communal overtones that you see in the society, basically that. It is one way in which Bommai is appealing to the party leadership and the RSS, saying that, see, I am your man. I can do whatever you ask me to, because if you see the BJP governments throughout the country, may it be in UP, may it be Haryana or somewhere else, it is like this. This is something that gives them votes, that gathers them votes come election season. That is why you see this rise in communal rhetoric over the past 4 months. Since that hijab row, everything has been communal. Right. There was a hijab row, then people wanted there was a debate on Jatka meat and halal meat, because there was don't eat halal meat. Then there was don't trade with Muslim vendors, don't buy mangoes from them basically recently. And today the Pramod Mutali comes out and says, next there is this Akshaya Tritiya season, so don't buy gold from Muslims. So yeah, this rhetoric, I think it will sustain until the election season, because it's a time tested formula for all right-wing parties to get votes, to have to distinguish between us and them, to divide us and them. And all the time it's the minority which faces problems under this. It's not just the Muslim community who face problems per se. If you see, there was this anti-conversion law which was particularly targeted at Christians, and that's why there were protests and petitions against these things happening. Yeah.
Right. So we'll come to the specifics of the communal incidents first. So to sum up, you said that B.S. Yediyurappa is the biggest leader that the BJP has. So by taking him out and bringing Bommai in, you're saying some sort of disagreements within the party in terms of accepting Bommai's leadership. Have I understood you correctly in that sense? Yeah. Right. So now let's get into the specifics as far as the BJP is concerned. We saw the minister, a very senior minister in the Bommai cabinet, K.S. Ishwarappa, resigning recently after the alleged suicide of Santosh Patil. Do you think this is something that is going to hurt the BJP's prospects going forward, given the seniority that he occupies in the Bharatiya Janata Party?
Probably it will affect Shivamogga constituency, removing Ishwarappa from the cabinet or his resignation, because I don't think Ishwarappa has that charisma, so to speak, to appeal to the larger audience in the state. Basically what Ishwarappa is a motor mouth. Nothing more. Basically he's a motor mouth, and people like him because he says those things that is convenient for the party at times. It's not that he is some leader. He is from the Kuruba community, and for the Kuruba community, the undisputed leader in the state is Siddaramaiah, who is from the Congress. Maybe his ouster will hurt BJP in Shivamogga. He's 73 right now, I think, and BJP doesn't usually give tickets to people who are 75 if they are not Yediyurappa. If he's Yediyurappa, probably will get it, because Yediyurappa is that kind of leader in Karnataka. But again, if not Ishwarappa's son is willing to contest from there. He's already ready, saying that, okay, if not father, then son. But I don't think this issue of contractors or something will ultimately hurt BJP's prospects come next elections. I don't know, we have become like very immune to the problems that affect us, okay? Because that's how propaganda works, right? Like all the problems, like all your inflation, all your unemployment doesn't affect you at all. It is something else that affects you at the end of the day. Every election, like at least in the recent elections, you have seen that. The burning issues that affect your livelihood, that affect your income, is not an issue at all come election season. So yeah, we are very interesting times, so to speak, come election season next year, 2023.
Right. So with regards to Ishwarappa, you're saying that it's only going to hurt votes maybe in his in his own.
Yeah, at most in his constituency, maybe nothing else. Because like once you say, for example, BJP is one party that has been saying that we are against corruption and all. So suddenly they say no, we can't remove him, and they can't defend him too. It's not that they did not try; they did try. But then when this guy commits suicide and names this minister, then it is very difficult to defend that guy, and there will be questions all the time. Interestingly, after this guy's suicide, like what should be the issue? Corruption should be the issue. But if you watch any Kannada news channels now, corruption is not the issue. The issue is stone pelting at Hubli. Right. They run that thing for a long time. They have been running the same thing for like 6-7 days now. It's not an issue, like people who have been accused have been arrested, but they don't want to do a deep dive on how this corruption is working out. No, because it doesn't suit their agenda, it doesn't suit the TRP, and it doesn't suit the propaganda of the interests that are financing them to push these stories. It's all money at the end of the day, right? Like even for media and for TV channels. I don't know, maybe newspapers, some of them are exempt from it, but ultimately, yeah, everyone is in the same basket. Yeah, Ishwarappa won't hurt.
Yes. Yes. So now, if we move on from Ishwarappa to the communal incidents that you mentioned, there has been a string of communal incidents in Karnataka, which is not known to be a usually communal or volatile state in those terms. But we saw hijab, halal, and now the azan row that picked up, and like the examples you mentioned about not buying gold. Do you think this is in a way setting the narrative for the 2023 elections in a way for the BJP?
First of all, it's not that we are not like accustomed to communal incidents. We are very at least known for it. Okay, for example, if you see the coastal region of Karnataka was called as a laboratory of Hindutva. Like all this love jihad, yes, cattle issue, everything started in the coast before it expanded throughout the nation. Yes, of course, it is setting a narrative. Obviously, it is said. For example. It's very complicated. Like once you start speaking on something, I'll divert on some of the issues. Okay. Basically, it is setting the narrative. Okay. And when you said this communal narrative, as you've seen in the past, all opposition parties are on the defensive. They can't like say, for example, even the Congress is divided over whether to support these minorities, even if it is the legitimate demand of the minorities, or even if the minorities are being harassed, or just to be safe and not to make any comment, so that they don't affect the Hindus who are majority voters. Like for example, what happened with the hijab row. Hijab row is something that was so trivial, it was not necessary that it should have been a major issue, right? But like even after it became such a huge issue, there were like stone pelting incidents around colleges, people fighting around colleges and all. Congress assumes this stance where it doesn't want to talk about it in the assembly, where all the legislation, like one faction wanted to discuss it, one faction did not want to discuss it. But it is not like in a very rational society where there is some sense of upholding the rights of minorities. People should be jumping to talk about it, right? But you don't see anything about it right now. Like why? That is one thing. Like consider the issue of meat, halal meat and Jatka meat. Even though all this, that actually did not help the BJP. It went against their interests. Right. Oh, that was surprising, because not every narrative you want to set will help you. That's why Nalin Kumar Katil, who is the state BJP president, issues a statement a few days after the controversy, going on to say that no, BJP is not involved in any manner in this. Why? Because halal meat, is something that is of economic interest for the nation, okay, financial interest. Right. Because if you are not exporting halal meat, Arab nations are not eating it, and you are only exporting it to the Arab nations. Even all the food stuff you say, if you don't have that halal stamp, many of your exporting companies will face a loss. That's why there's like, oh, we'll have a safe stat here, and then they're like, no, we are not interested in the halal. More like people are also not, like people are like fed up by that, like these issues coming up relentlessly.
So you mentioned the laboratory of Hindutva. How is that going on, given the fact that elections are just some months away? Do you see any big activities happening with these 3 incidents that I mentioned earlier? Do you see something big that's happening on ground in terms of on-ground impact?
It will, like all these incidents will have an impact. Like, luckily, it's not happening in the coast now because they're tired of it again. That's what I think, because the coasts are tired of it, so they're moving inland, say to Shivamogga and Hubli. It's not that Hubli has not been a communal region, nor Shivamogga has not been. There have been communal incidents in the past in these regions too. But what recently you saw was like deliberate attempts to make places like Kalburgi, which is a relatively non-communal region, communal, or like Raichur, a non-communal region, like same textbook patterns. There is a huge rally that when it goes in front of a mosque, they all start singing and dancing, and there will be stone pelting. Okay, but the point is, there are these attempts to make these regions too communal, because once Yadurappa goes, like, okay, there is that thing also. Once Yadurappa goes, there is this Lingayats are not happy. Okay, Lingayats are not happy that they removed Yadurappa. And even Lingayat community is divided into 2, in the sense, basically the Panchamsalis are like, we are Panchamsalis now. They have to assert their identity, saying that we want reservation, even though they are from the Lingayat community. If you go back and look at it, like all these problems, all this Lingayat issue was started by people within the BJP. The Panchamsali and Lingayat, other normal Lingayat divide was started by people within the Lingayat community to hurt Yadurappa's prospects. And they successfully removed Yadurappa, saying that, oh, this is going out of hand. But now it is coming back to bite them.
Right.
Okay, not only the communal incidents, the ones that related to castes who probably might hit them badly. Like, for example, if the elections were to be held in March this year, then BJP would have won hands down, because communal polarization always helps the BJP. But maybe if it is an election, since the election is a year from now on, it is like difficult how the situation will be, whether it will be beneficial to the BJP, whether it will be beneficial to Congress or the JDS. It's like very difficult to predict.
So you're saying it's too early to say anything in terms of how this will affect the poll prospects, if one has to look at it that way, for the Bharatiya Janata Party?
If you look at all elections, like not only in India, throughout the world, it is becoming difficult for people to predict elections. Right? Nobody predicted Trump to win. Everyone is like, Hillary is going to win hands down. But Trump won. Like even the elections that you saw in France yesterday, that between Le Pen and what's that guy?
Emmanuel Macron.
Macron. So like this far right woman was expected to win also. It was like this guy winning a second term was also said to be somewhere in doubt. But then he wins again. So predicting elections is very difficult these days. But then like you can predict elections maybe. 1 month from now there's an election, probably you can have a picture on how the elections will be. But predicting a year in advance, it's like a bit of a stretch. A long time in politics.
Okay. It's fascinating to hear all these insights for us. Before we move forward, we have one question from the audience that we would like to take up. So, yes.
Sir, what are the challenges you face as a journalist covering politics? If you can share something.
One of the things is political parties are very opaque. Okay, they are like it's good for them. But I don't know. I don't think it is a challenge. But then it is a challenge that is very easily overcome, because in politics and in parties there are factions, which is always trying to say one faction is not happy about the other, and they were like always trying to feed you something about. But as a journalist, one more challenge is not to be fed. So to be very aware on who we are speaking to and what interests they serve. Like it's not that you learn it the day you enter journalism or a year you enter journalism, but over a period of time, you will know who is feeding what and why they are feeding you that. And then lack of transparency, not only like when we are covering politics, it doesn't mean just covering political parties. Like the government and the policy also we cover. So there is a lack of transparency, that I can say. Everything is very opaque. But then there are always ways to get information out, but those ways are getting narrower by the day.
Just I have a follow-up. How do you overcome these challenges? You said political parties are opaque, leaders or any government policy. As a journalist, how do you overcome? Because I'm sure all of us sitting here as trainee journalists.
So that's why I've got something called sources. Like some sources are credible, some sources are incredible. So incredible you can't believe them at all.
So sources.
Sources always, like, and you can always cultivate sources. Okay, what is sources? Like you just speak nicely to them, and over a period of time they like you, they trust you, and they will want to share some information with you. For example, BJP, like Congress is also opaque, but BJP is like very opaque. Okay, like for example, since that high command culture came to that party, like not even the MLAs and MLCs will know what's actually going on. Right. And they get to know from what we write on the newspapers. It's not that we are all writing the truth, but that's how it's been going on since the high command culture. Like for example, Bommai was made CM. No, nobody had a clue till the morning that Bommai will be made CM. Earlier it wasn't like that. I think there is always this speculation. There are all these front runners who will be considered for the post, and these front runners will get that post. Not now.
We'll be back after a short break. On the other side, we'll also talk about parties like the Congress, JDS, and perhaps the possibility of the Aam Aadmi Party. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching D3, a show where we discuss, debate, and decode. We have with us Akram Mohammad, who's a journalist with Deccan Herald, talking about Karnataka politics and the overall political landscape. So let's come back to politics and let's speak of political parties once again. We spoke about the Bharatiya Janata Party. Let's talk about the Congress and the JDS, the two opposition parties that are there. In Congress, we've seen there are two strong leaders in the name of Siddaramaiah and DK Shivkumar. The JDS, in terms of electoral fortunes, is something that they have been lagging in the recent by-poll results. How are you seeing with regards to opposition, their narrative, and what are the kind of politics they are keen on?
My opinion, frankly, JDS is like, I feel it's a very opportunistic party. Yeah. Yeah, please don't take me wrong, but it is like, for example, they can have an alliance with anyone, and ideology doesn't matter if you get power. I don't know, recently I think Kumaraswamy has been very vocal about this harassment to minorities, and now he has a president who is from the Muslim community in the form of CM Ibrahim. I don't know how far it will benefit them come election season, because this is one BJP leader told me, because I'll just speak of JDS now. Sure. Muslims and Lingayats are very similar apparently, because they vote in a block. Okay, if Lingayats vote for a party, all Lingayats vote for a party, and if Muslims vote for a party, all Muslims vote for a party. I don't know how far this is true for Muslims right now, because by this logic that BJP leader meant that all Muslims will vote for the Congress. It is not necessarily true, like especially in places like some urban pockets and in the coast. There is this like SDPI right now, right? Yes. They have the capacity to gather like at least 10 to 15,000 votes in every constituency. That is like a huge chunk. So yeah, JDS being an opportunistic party, I think their prospects are very. I don't think the prospects are very good this election season. Last time they won 40. I think it will be a challenge for them to repeat that feat even come 2020 elections. Congress has always accused. It has always been a divided house, and it is a divided house even now, especially because there is a faction between Siddaramaiah and DK Shivkumar. Again, like DK Shivkumar is the KPCC president, okay, but I don't think he has that pan-Karnataka appeal like Siddaramaiah or Yediyurappa has. Like Yediyurappa can go anywhere in any part of the state and have an audience to come and listen to him. Like similarly, Siddaramaiah can have that. But DK Shivkumar unfortunately doesn't have that oratory skills to capture the people like these two leaders do. Speaking of Congress prospects, I think it will depend on how they approach the elections. Like they should have won the 2018 elections technically, yes. But then they didn't win because BJP manages elections better. They know how to handle elections, they know how to gather votes, they know which communities to pander to, and they have this extremely good micro level management, okay? Right. Like they have these page pramukhs. There are page committees. In the sense, for every booth, electoral booth, there is a list of voters that is published by the election commission. For each page, there is a committee in BJP. to see who will vote for them. Very extreme, like this is very, yeah, but then such tactics I think will reap dividends for them even these elections, and even like until Congress learns a lesson from 2018, they have good prospects here, but until they learn a lesson and put up a united front, I don't think they can assume power independently. Like they can't win 113. That is the, even if they win 113, BJP will do another operation and oh come on, let's go BJP government again. Yeah.
So if I'm getting the sense that you're saying that Congress does not have that level of election machinery that is at the Bharatiya Janata Party's disposal, for example.
No, Congress has workers in every constituency. I just think Congress is very lazy. Like in tackling BJP, like getting at BJP the way BJP approaches elections, that's how Congress should approach elections. If they want some prospects, like if they want to win. Last election, no. If they had put up a united front, they could have won easily. But again, nobody wanted Siddaramaiah to be CM again. Even in the and these are some factors that will affect a party, a national party that wants to be re-elected. So until these people put up a united front, which I doubt they will, it is very difficult for them to form government independently like they did in 2013. Yeah.
So a fractured mandate will eventually benefit the BJP in terms of the opposition.
Yeah. Clearly. Right. JDS wins 10, they'll be like kingmakers. Come on, make me CM. Okay. Yeah.
So now we spoke about the BJP, the Congress and the JDS. Let's come to the Aam Aadmi Party, a party that is coming on the back of victory in Punjab. They recently had a rally last week where farmer leaders promised their support to the Aam Aadmi Party, and they've also had big recruits, especially in cities like Bangalore. Like Bhaskar Rao was one of the big joinees that the Aam Aadmi Party boasted of. How are the chances, or what is the Aam Aadmi Party's strategy going forward, or how are you looking at the situation with regards to the Aam Aadmi Party playing a role in Karnataka? Because Karnataka is a big state that way, it's not just restricted to Bangalore, right? So how do you look at Aam Aadmi Party, their narrative that we have seen in Delhi, in Punjab, and now in Karnataka? Do you think they'll have to change their strategy to, have given the politics that is there in Karnataka? How do you see their prospects?
I don't see any prospects in the next elections at least. Like it's too early to say AAP will. I don't know, if they win 2 or 3 seats, I think it will be an achievement. Like for example, so there hasn't been any election to urban local bodies, okay? Like because there is some dispute going on with regards to OBC reservation. If they had this reservation sorted and there was an election for BBMP this year, say, and like say AAP won say 30 or 40 seats out of 240, then they have that momentum going forward, okay? Like say next elections comes, they will say, oh, we have won this, we have done that, we can do this here too, and please give us votes. But there is no election for them to get some momentum per se. It's not that they didn't contest in 2018, they did contest, and the fortunes were not that great. And like Karnataka has been very, what you say, not reserved, there's a better word, but let's say reserved there. Okay, like in like accepting parties, which are not mainstream national parties. If you see, like save for Janata Dal, there is no other party that has gained power in Karnataka. Like all are national parties. So I don't think it is easy for AAP to make inroads. Probably they can be they'll play spoil sports to the prospects of some candidates in some constituencies. But I don't think they have great prospects, at least for the next 2023 elections.
Spoke about the momentum that's there in the run-up. Don't you think instead of the BBMP polls, Punjab, the results that came up in Punjab, don't you think that's something that will...
No. It's like Punjab is very far, bro. Sorry, Punjab is very far. So yeah, Punjab is very far. Like it doesn't connect to the people of the state. No, like even if it is Maharashtra, some party wins, doesn't affect the people here.
No, so what I meant is in terms of the cadre and an energy and enthusiasm that is across the cadre after a result they've seen outside Delhi.
You spoke about these farmer leaders giving support to AAP. Like that was only a small fraction of farmer leaders who gave support to AAP, and most of the people who came there cheered for Kejriwal. Come election season, they won't vote for AAP because they are from Mandya. They will vote for JDS or the Congress. They don't vote for AAP in Mandya. Like what is AAP basically is an urban electorate. Okay, they're looking at the urban electorate right now, and it will take some time to go pierce the rural hinterlands of the state. Like all the rural hinterlands, there is this saturation between the 3 parties. Like if you go to North Karnataka, it's only Congress and BJP. There is no JDS too even. Like it's safe in some pockets where there are some good leaders. going there and getting votes for up, it's like a tall task, maybe in 10 years probably.
So you're saying 2023 is something very early for the Aam Aadmi Party in terms of making a move. 2033 is what you are predicting.
Prospects, yeah, like if they sustain this momentum, maybe 10 years from now they can win some 30-40 seats and become JDS. Sorry.
So just one last question to round up the discussion. I know you said that it's pretty early to call elections and which way the wind is blowing, but do you see the Bharatiya Janata Party making, like you said, if the polls were to be held in March, BJP would have swept completely. Do you think that, is there a chance for the BJP to bag a second successive term in Karnataka, given what has happened in the post-Yediyurappa era that we've seen with Bommai?
It all depends on Yediyurappa, okay? Like again, like Yediyurappa will have a role to play here. Like they have to accommodate Yediyurappa somehow. By Yediyurappa, I mean his sons, like Vijayendra and Raghavendra. Vijayendra basically, who is interested in state politics. Because Yediyurappa has that power to swing at least 3-4% of the votes that will decide the fate of the state. 3-4% of the votes will ultimately mean some 50-60 seats. So BJP can do it, but whether can they do it under Bommai, it's not clear yet. Because Bommai is not, as I said earlier, is not the tallest leader or within BJP even. Like if you see Karnataka BJP even, he is not the tallest leader. So repeating this feat of winning, by the way, they did not win 2018.
Yes.
Coming back to power, I think it is possible for the BJP, considering the resources they have at their disposal. But I think it will be a very narrow contest, like very tightly fought contest, and it could be anybody's game at the end of the elections in May. When all votes are counted, it could be anybody's.
For the BJP, you're saying that it's important to see how they manage Yediyurappa and his sons in terms of when they are on the election.
His sons. Yediyurappa, you have if you keep him happy, probably you can win it easy. But not easy. It is not easy. It is very difficult. But I think they have a very good chance of coming back to power in 2023. If they don't come back to power, they have ways to come back to power anyway.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. It has been a wonderful, hour, half an hour that we've spent just getting to know about what Karnataka politics stands for. What is the scenario going forward?
I've been accurate, okay? This is as far as I know, and I don't know very far.
Absolutely. Nobody can predict what is going to happen in the future. But again, thank you so much, sir, for taking out time from your busy schedule. I know you said you were on an assignment in the morning and you've made time for us here. Thank you so much once again to our audience. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back with another episode of D3, Discuss, Debate and Decode. Thank you.